It's 6 p.m., February 6th, 2023, and this is the Civic Union, a collaboration between Access Humboldt and the Department of Communication Studies at Cal Poly Humboldt. We are uniting the people of the county with their representative government and community helpers. I'm Dr. Aaron Donaldson. You are listening to KZZH 96.7 FM Eureka. We're also streaming on kzzh.accesshumboldt.net. Access Humboldt is local voices through community media. Speaking of local voices, we would love to hear from you. You can drop us an email to thecivicunion@gmail.com. You can also tweet us right now at civic_union on Twitter. We will read and respond to appropriate tweets and emails on the air. Why not give it a try? That's at civic_union on Twitter, or the Civic Union, that's all one word, at gmail.com. Today, we're really excited to be joined in studio by Scott Bauer. He's the Eureka City Council Member for Ward 4. Scott, again, you are the first person to visit us in studio. Thank you so much for joining us. It's great to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Could you give our listeners just a little bit of background about where you're from? Where were you born? Do you have a first political memory?
Yeah, I was born in Newport Beach, but that was the only hospital close by. Not from Newport, but I am from Huntington Beach. Grew up there until I moved here in 1993 to go to Humboldt State. My first political memory was Ronald Reagan being inaugurated, and shortly or during the inauguration, the Iranian hostages were released. And I don't know why that just stuck in me. I think I was 8 or something. But that's my first.
Seems like large events happening at the same time, right?
Yeah,
like
definitely.
Sure. Okay. And it just kind of made you aware that politics is a thing, that people get elected and also maybe hostages get released at the same time. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think all those people, it was a big story for a long time.
For sure. What got you into local politics? Like, what made you decide to do that?
Well, my kids really, I've always been involved in politics my whole life. Working for, I've been a union member, and I was on a board of directors for the California Association of Professional Scientists for 12 years. But really it came down to my kids and how they felt about our city. Like, it's ugly, and, look at these people, or, whatever, just kind of teenager kind of things they would say. And it was like, I need to do something about that. I need to, I'm always been a problem solver, I feel like. Mm-hmm. And so, I feel like the best way to create change and make this a place that my kids want to come back to is to get involved in politics.
Yeah, that's really cool. How did you get into local politics? Was there someone that said you should run for this office, or did you pick an office and run for it?
No, I saw an opportunity with the Austin Allison not running again, and I was thinking about it, and I told my wife, I said, what do you think, if I do this? And her, having been in politics and campaigns, she thought about it. She's like, well, why not? Our kids are big enough that they can get around, and she thought it was a good idea. And why not start? I think you can have a large impact at the local level on a city council versus, much more, running for Senate or Assembly or something. This is where you can really affect your community, and you can see the results in a kind of a rapid fashion. Or, things take time.
Sure.
Redoing roads, people are always like, why aren't the roads fixed? It's like, well, it takes time. Everything takes time, and wheels of government are slow, but you see it happening, and it gives you a sense of accomplishment and pride.
Sure. You said your wife had some experience. Did she give you any advice, or is there any kind of background there as far as like her just telling you what to prepare for?
Well, she was a big part of my campaign.
Okay.
And a couple of dear friends who had been in campaigns as well. So they were there, like, here's what here's what we're going to do. She really helped, make it possible. Was an excellent, fundraiser and ideas person. And so, we were a team to make that happen. And that's really, and, having your kids support too is really critical, but it was a team affair. And she, everybody has advice, and but I think we're on the same page when it comes to how, what's important. And it was really it was a challenging time, but pretty fun too.
You said that your sons come sometimes and watch the city council meetings and things. Oh, that's exciting. Did they participate in the campaign too? Did they have any reaction or exposure to that whole process, or was it mostly something that was off camera for them?
No, yeah, they helped walk the streets, walk the ward a little bit.
Okay.
I think I knocked on over 1,000 doors.
What was that like?
It was during COVID.
Yeah.
So it was.
So everyone's really excited to answer their door.
Well, and the amazing thing was, people were actually excited to see you.
I could see that.
They're like, wow,
yeah.
a human.
No, that actually makes a lot of sense.
And they had things to talk about,
Yeah.
real concerns. And so I think it was probably one of the main reasons I was successful too, going and talking to people and hearing them out. And they needed a time to speak, and you could do it safely, from a distance, and we're outdoors. And so it was, that was the best part of I think of politics, is talking to people and meeting your neighbors, and still doing that. Walk the streets and talk to people. It's a great part of it.
It's something that a lot of people, I think, would be really kind of alienated by, the idea of walking up and down your neighborhood, knocking on doors and talking to the people that open it. Sounds kind of confrontational. There's an old-fashioned notion of a neighborhood that's like, we're supposed to be able to do that, but it takes a little bit of courage to do that. Did you face that, or are you just kind of a sociable person and you were ready to roll?
No, I think there's a nervous aspect the first few days, but after that, it was just part of the day. Hey, I'm heading out,
right?
Be back at dark, and starting to enjoy. Like, and I'll be frank, I'm a social person, and so I would sit there and, oh my gosh, we've been talking for an hour. I'm trying to knock on 100 doors, but meeting people that are just really engaged and want to tell you their life story. And I think some of them, probably didn't vote for me, but I met great people that we have the exact same concerns, the roads, crime, the environment. And it's something empowering about that. You're like, we're all the same. We have the exact same concerns. We just think of them differently.
Yeah. Any really memorable moments from the campaign that really stood out or made an impact?
There's so many. I think just experiencing the whole neighborhood, and the people, and getting to meet so many people, because we don't talk to our neighbors hardly enough. When we were kids, we would be out on the streets till dark. I was a latchkey kid, I mean, single mom. I was gone. And that's how the neighborhood was, though. Football in the middle of the street. And we don't have that. And so I wish we would all just do that. Just go outside and have block parties. Let's do it, and get to know each other again, because we spend way too much time on our phones and inside. It's keeping the separation between how we feel as a society, right? We're so polarized. We gotta make more connections as human beings.
It's easy to forget how much we have in common when we're not talking to each other on a local level. I think that's definitely true. What were some of the biggest struggles that you had getting into politics, just personally?
Oh, not really personally. Like I said, I've been involved in unions for a long time. Vice president of a pretty big scientific union for a while. And I didn't have a lot of support from people that I really valued their support. And it actually challenged me to work harder. But I that was hard for me. Like, why, why don't you see I have a career in labor and, and the democratic process. And that was hard, but it also was invigorating. Like, okay, then, well, I'll show you that I can do a good job and I can campaign harder than anybody. And I was successful, but I think that was something that really kind of bugged me.
It would be difficult if you're kind of a self-starter and they're not recruiting you. When I joined the union, that the lecture rep had left and they needed a new lecture rep, and I knew that person and they kind of recruited me, and I was grateful to have a good community that kind of like worked me into that union. I would imagine that like campaigning for a large union as someone who's kind of putting himself out there would be maybe a little different than that.
Yeah, definitely.
Huh. If there are people out there that are considering careers in politics, and maybe there are people who are definitely not interested in politics, do you have any thoughts to either of these populations here as we?
Yeah, I think the people that aren't interested are probably those that should run. I
That's
think
kind of, yeah, I was hoping you'd go there. Yeah.
no, because it's, people will thank me like, thanks for your service, appreciate it. And I said, there's plenty of opportunities for you, and I think those that are less inclined, and we're all too busy, totally understand that, but you're involved in something bigger than yourself, and you have to understand it's about your community and your kids and your friends. And so we need people to like give up, give up free time and put themselves out there and maybe uncomfortable. And I think I tell my kids this, you got to make yourself uncomfortable and do things that are hard. It makes you stronger and it makes it easier. Hard work makes life easy. And that's kind of, my grandfather told me that years ago. And it's true, like giving speeches, the more you do it, the easier it is. And then if you realize that we're all just people, and you think when you're talking to people, they're just human beings, you realize that why be afraid?
Yeah.
Why be nervous? It doesn't make any sense, So people that aren't interested, I say, please run for any office, you need to. And then those that are, you need to think about why do I want to do this? And if it's for power, don't run. That's not what we need. We need people that are in it because they care, about, like I said, family, friends, community. Because there's a lot of people in the world that are in it for just power, and that's not a great reason to do this.
Sometimes I'm really concerned about the people that are very excited to get elected to office, because it can become kind of an individual cult of personality, and I don't know that that's what a democracy needs all the time. So.
No, some of our best presidents, I think, were nervous at the podium. You'd see it. I'm trying to think of thinking like some of them that really had a struggle with being in the limelight, and they ended up being great presidents. Jimmy Carter,
yeah, I was gonna say he's kind of Nixon and Carter are the two that on the different sides that I would pick. That you can see it for sure.
Yeah.
We're just about to take a small little PSA stop here, but I wanted to ask you real briefly. This is something we ask folks at the top. What are you reading right now that's making you think? Because you mentioned a book, The Least of Us, and we'll come back to this maybe a little bit later, but can you tell our audience just a little bit about that book?
It's about fentanyl and meth use in America. And I can't put it down because it so says a lot about what's going on in our community and the United States. It's fascinating.
Cool. Well, I'm really excited to hear more about that.
Are you interested in sharing your story with the North Coast? The Redwoods Listening Post is a great place to start. The Redwoods Listening Post is a local news response project that is looking to build diverse local media collaborations to support news and information efforts of community-based information. Funded by the Humboldt Area Foundation, the Wild Rivers Community Foundation, and the California Endowment to support local media creation, we want to hear from you. For more information, find us across social platforms at the Redwoods Listening Post or online at accesshumboldt.net.
It's 18 minutes after 6 p.m., February 6th, 2023. I'm Dr. Aaron Donaldson, and you are listening to KZZH 96.7 FM Eureka. We're also streaming on kzzh.accesshumboldt.net. Access Humboldt is local voices through community media. This is the Civic Union, a collaboration between Access Humboldt and the Department of Communication Studies at Cal Poly Humboldt, uniting the people of the county with their representative government and community helpers. And we do want to hear from you. You can drop us an email at thecivicunion@gmail.com. You can also tweet us right now at civic_union on Twitter. We will read and respond to appropriate tweets and emails on the air. Why not give it a try? Tonight, we're really excited to be talking to Scott Bauer, the Eureka City Council Member for Ward 4. Scott, we were just talking a little bit about, where you're from and growing up and getting into local politics. The question to kick off this segment is just where is your office geographically now that you are an elected member of local politics? How are you going to answer that question?
Yeah, well, there is no office. Excuse me. It's really the ward, area is. It's a funny shaped thing. It really covers what would you call it? Arcata Bay, the south part of Arcata Bay. So huge oyster contingency there.
I was going to say a lot of oysters. You said you represent more oysters than anyone else on the
Yes.
council.
And then it goes over
finicky constituents. I've
Yes,
heard.
they
Yeah,
are.
yeah,
Very,
sorry.
very much so. And it goes over towards cutoff over there at the far end of the corridor, and it comes back and incorporates Jacobs Avenue, where the farm store is, and then up towards Harrison Avenue is kind of Harrison Street is kind of the, what would you call that, the east boundary, and then it goes up around excuse me, up around by Redwood, by the zoo, Sequoia Zoo, and comes back down around Cooper Gulch, and it incorporates Cooper Gulch and the one side of Eureka High there. So it's like all political boundaries. It makes sense if you think of population. That's about it.
Yeah, and we're gonna think a little bit more about that population in just one second. It's the first one you drive into if you're coming from the north, if I'm not mistaken,
True.
from
Target,
Arcata.
yeah, Target's a part of it, and the Bridge District.
Yep, there you go. Okay, cool. And then you go and you meet with the city council there in the city council building, and you have your meetings there when you're not online.
Correct.
Right. Yeah. Okay, cool. Where is your office in terms of just like the various levels of government? Can you elaborate a little bit for our listeners in terms of like what the city council does and where it sits in terms of, as you understand it, like who do you report to and how does that work?
Well, we report to the citizens of Eureka. We're the county seat, the biggest community, and we represent about 29,000 people. I think each ward. So you split that up. There's a 5,000 a piece or something like that. But we're our own entity. Have our own budget and separate from the county, although we interact all the time with the county when it comes to roads and issues like mental health, and so we're our own body, but we're very much a part of the Humboldt County community. We are where people come to shop and recreate and go to the doctor and dentist. So we're really an important component of our county, but we're all tied together. We're all part of the same, great county that we have.
We kind of were looking at the map before we started, and I said there's all these little parts, but they're all a big organism, and it can get a little complicated. But yes. I like a holistic approach. I really appreciate that. Are you on any committees or anything like that? I was kind of looking at the agenda here, and I was curious if you were involved in any of these committees. Which ones were you sitting in on there?
That's the nuts and bolts of city council, right? Or all these committees. I serve on the Joint Powers Authority, which are Humboldt Bay Fire and Eureka Fire. I serve for Cal Cities. So Cal Cities represents 492 cities in California. Wow. I'm on the board of directors, so I represent Eureka and all the cities in the state. Oof. So we do bigger policy issues that affect all of our cities. Wow. I serve on I meet with I just got on the committee to meet with our board of supervisors representatives. The two that represent Natalie and Rex represent Eureka. What other committees do I serve on? A lot of committees. I think Redwood Coast Energy Authority, RCEA.
Okay.
I serve on the board there. Also serve on, yeah, there's a lot. And they're all fun, and they all have their own, issues. I really like the energy stuff. RCEA's, we're trying to get to, a carbon-free future. And it's one of those things when you're in government, you just like, why can't we get there faster?
Yeah. And
you get to learn about supply chain issues and, permitting, and why can't these solar panels get put in faster? And it's, but it's the important work that a lot of people don't see, behind the scenes, that really makes things work.
Is that one of those policy issues that you think connects lots of different cities? Is just like trying to reduce carbon footprint and energy use and things like that? Are there other issues that really stand out?
Well, that, and of course, medical issues,
Oh, sure.
We don't have enough dentists,
right.
What a huge issue that we're facing.
If you know anyone taking new patients, let me know.
I know. Right? Mental health, working on mental health issues. And that, again, ties us with the county and with the other cities, so there's these things that really bind us more than you think, and it affects us all. So it's really interesting to see. And that's the best part about politics, is to see all this stuff that happens to make the streets safe, to, get doctors to come to our community.
Yeah.
It's a challenge.
And to stay, preferably.
Stay.
Yeah, that's the hard part.
People to come and stay and be a part of our community.
Yeah, the running joke in our household is as soon as we're friends with them or they are like our doctors, they're going to move away. That seems to be our luck since we've moved here in 2015. But this is a big, broad question. Like, how does it work? Like, take us through a day in your life on the job. It could be as basic as like, what time do you get up in the morning and what are the first couple of things that you do? But it could also be just like give us an example of how you tie committee work together with some of this constituent work that you do to make something happen. Like, how does it actually happen?
Oh, man. Well, I mean, I think any of us on council, our days, we have other jobs because this job it's basically a volunteer situation. So it's, go to your job. And then if you're not going to a committee meeting or, some other board that you're on, you're reviewing, your emails and, constituent emails from staff, from city staff. So, days are 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., pretty much every day.
Wow.
You're doing something and so you're busy. But then when you get to these committees like Energy Authority, you start to see it becomes a planning issue, a permitting issue, and that links you with the county, or that links you with, Coastal Commission or something. And so you start seeing all these it's like a web. Yeah. And there's all these interconnected pieces that have to work together to get these things done. And so you're making calls, you're calling someone else to, but you have to be mindful of, the Brown Act. Like, you can't be talking between, multiple council members about an issue, and you can talk to, a supervisor. That's perfectly fine, but you're walking a tightrope, right? To make projects come to fruition, and it's fun, and that's a fun part of the job, is that challenge of making these things happen. But you could work all night. Realistically, you got to sleep, of course, but to get the things you want to get done takes a huge time investment, and the love and hopefully your family supports you.
That was one of the follow-ups, that you probably take your work home with you a lot then.
All the time.
I mean, you live there is kind of how it works, so you never really leave.
No, there's always something you can do, and it's what you put into it, that as much as you can put in to get things done.
Do you think that there are misconceptions that people have about what it means to be a city council member? And how do you encounter those, or where do you see those in your day to day?
Well, the first misconception is that it's this high paying job, and people still say it. And I'm like, it's simply not true. Right.
The lump sum's not a lot, and the dollar to hour is just catastrophic, I would imagine. It's got to be terrible.
$1 an hour, And so that's a huge one. And then people think that you're in it for power or something. It's like, I don't know anybody on our council that's in it for power or prestige. I just don't. And so it's amazing. I often wonder what people think of me, like, why is he doing it? What's his motivation? And it's tell him I care, I care about my kids and my family. And that's why I do it. And I don't know if to even believe that. It's an interesting thing that I wish people would give each other a break. All of us,
There's something about politicians that we just want to distrust them. And
Yeah.
if they're a local person that's our neighbor on the city council, we'll just maybe assume that they're in it for some reason,
Yeah,
as opposed to just trying to fix the potholes. Right? Like,
exactly.
what do you wish that more people knew about the city council? There's perceptions, but then there's also just gaps in knowledge, I think. Like,
Oh, I mean, we always want people to be involved, to tune in, to watch, to participate. And we all have, like I said, we all have busy lives, and it's hard for us. People can't make the time, and so they don't know what it takes, what it takes to get a pothole, or what our budget is, and how hard it is to stretch that money out. There's so many competing demands for a city's budget: roads, police, fire, and I just don't think.
just like laws and regulations and all sorts of things you got to navigate too, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I mean, like, why isn't this done? It's like, well, here's these 14 laws why it can't be done tomorrow, and the state mandates. And housing's a big one, and
Right.
the mandates of the state, and why we have to do things.
Right.
Why we have to build housing. And once I talk to people and try and explain that, then they get it,
Right.
Okay, and they still may not be happy with it, but just the educational component is really important. And we're always trying to get people tune in, pay attention if you can.
It's a small, but it's important piece. There's this idea that there's this illusion of grandeur on the one hand, where it's like you've got these big ideas of what you're, supposed to be when you try to do the job. And then I think that there's this idea that the city ought to be able to just do stuff. But you're wrapped up in a county that's wrapped up in a state that's wrapped up in a federal government, in fact, and all of those people have opinions about what we're going to do.
Yes.
And that makes it a little more complicated for sure. Talk a little bit about your ward, if you would, here. What is it? What kind of issues or demographics in particular do you think matter to the fourth ward? Are there things you have in common maybe with other wards? Just give us a little inside look in terms of how those demographics break down.
Oh, that's a good question. And, we're, how would I say this? It's a residential, we do have businesses in the ward, like Target, is a huge business, and others along 4th and 5th Street. But and I'll say this, in the campaign process, I got a general sense from our ward that things were okay. I'm like, what do you think of the ward? How are we doing? And they'd be like, yeah, things are pretty good. And so, which may be a totally different response from another area of the city.
Right.
But what I gathered is like, well, things are good. They're happy. It's a progressive ward. They're passionate about the environment. But they also want, safe streets, safe meaning not just, pothole free, but, crosswalks and safe, ability to ride a bike. And so it's a really great place to live. And the people there are pretty in tune too. When you talk to them, that they understand the issues that are going on and pretty engaged. And we have, Sequoia Zoo, which, with the skywalk, it's just bringing people in from all over.
Terrifies me.
Skywalk is love it.
It's unforgivable.
I wish we could have a zip line going off into the duck pond from there, no.
Correct.
No, it's great. But no, the ward is it's an awesome place to live. And I think the city is too. We got a lot of people, and there's big city issues. And I tell people all the time, we're a small town we all have big city issues. Go anywhere, go to Portland, go to, large towns. It's all the same.
Yeah.
The same things.
I tell people I had to learn that people don't like Eureka when I moved here, because when I moved here, I'm like, this place is really beautiful. This is a really beautiful place, and I've never lived anywhere quite like it before.
Well, and I remember too when I moved here, the pulp mill was running,
Yeah.
and there was a smell,
Yeah.
but it was still and I could tell us we're a hard scrabble town. If you look at how we're built, it was a logging, fishing, and community, and it was utilitarian. Businesses were supply, new chainsaws and heavy equipment, and so people forget that part of it. Like, we can't just overnight be something Victorian village.
Right.
Things take time. We were built by hardworking human beings, who their mission was, keep working. And that's something that people need to always be thinking about when they think of us. Like, we're changing, but we have a legacy of, a lot of things that take time to repair.
It's a newly developing area in a lot of ways. It's an old area, but the uses of the area and the population of the area is changing rapidly right now.
Yeah.
And it's leading to a population increase that has expectations that the region is just not ready to fill, I think, in a lot of ways.
And it's going to be hard to.
Yeah.
No
doubt.
We were surrounded by steep forested terrain and a bay and an ocean and sea level rise. So there's a lot of challenges to grow to where we need to grow to.
We're just about to dig into some of those challenges, but real quickly, I want to tell you, the listener, that this is the Civic Union, a collaboration between Access Humboldt and the Department of Communication Studies at Cal Poly Humboldt. We're trying to unite the people of the county with their representative government and community helpers. We're talking to Scott Bauer here from Eureka City Council. He's the member for Ward 4. We've just been getting to know a little bit about his background and his journey through local politics. We've got more questions for you here right around the bend.
Are you a working parent struggling to pay for childcare? If you live in Humboldt County, Changing Tides Family Services may be able to help. Changing Tides is a local nonprofit organization that's been helping families for over 40 years. We can even help you find a qualified daycare provider for free. If you'd like to see if you qualify for our services, check us out online by Googling Changing Tides Family Services, or you can call us at 707-444-8293. That's 707-444-8293.
You are listening to KZZH 96.7 FM Eureka. We are also streaming on kzzh.accesshumboldt.net. That's Access Humboldt, local voices through community media. My name is Dr. Aaron Donaldson, and this is a Civic Union. If you would like to, you can drop us an email to thecivicunion@gmail.com. That's all one word, thecivicunion@gmail.com. You can also tweet us right now if you would like at civic_union on Twitter. We will read and respond to appropriate tweets and emails on the air. Why not give it a try? We would love to hear from you. We are talking with Scott Bauer, the City Council Ward Member for the City of Eureka here, and we've got a little bit of time here to kind of touch in on some of these issues. You had just mentioned housing being one that is like a particularly difficult one. So I do kind of want to talk about that. But before we started just talking tonight, you'd said that mental health was something that was really high on your list. And you had mentioned that it was a good example where like the issues that the city faces and the cities that like healthcare workers and people faces really intersect in a lot of ways. Can you just kind of elaborate a little bit on that particular interest of yours and how that works out?
Yeah, mental health is affecting our medical community pretty significantly. I mean, one of the first things that happens when somebody is having a crisis, they typically end up in our emergency room, and so they're the front line. Our emergency room nurses and doctors are the front line to address this issue, and it's challenging our ability for staff or really having a hard time because these people need a pretty serious treatment, and the hospital's really not the ideal location for that. So that intersection, is creating some really big challenges for our ability to, retain doctors, keep our nurses safe. And so, how do we deal with that? And that affects the whole community, not just the city. And it's something that, my wife is a nurse, and so, I know about it, and we have to figure out a way to make this safe for everybody, and to help those, having a crisis.
What kinds of actionable things do you see at the city level in terms of like needing reform, or that you see being reformed in meaningful ways? You'd also mentioned that Mayor Burgell was like a big advocate on some of this and a good ally of yours in this. Are there things y'all are working on, or?
Yeah, I mean, we're hiring we have a mental health clinician. So one of the ways that you try and, diffuse a situation on the street is, having our new program is a mental health clinician who'll be able to try and, help this person. It's not really an enforcement issue, and we're asking our police men and women to handle something that they're not really trained to do.
Right.
And so having this kind of new process that a lot of communities are doing now, using mental health professionals to try and, get these people the care they need, versus treating it like an enforcement thing, is really great. So that, we're working on that. That's the first step, but more importantly is, facilities, right? And that's a larger community thing. Where can we build more facilities? Where can we, take people and give them the care they need, because jail's not going to do it.
Right.
That's not even an option. The emergency room isn't a great option at all. So we've got a long ways, but just talking to other city council people across the state, everybody's facing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
We are not alone, and people, I think, don't understand that. They think this is a Eureka issue, and it's not. It's everywhere, and it has to do a lot too with meth is a big driver in that, especially the newer stuff that's out there. But I think I'm pretty proud that we're doing that. And I thank our mayor, who's really championing this issue, that we're going to work together on this and really try and, do something that's constructive for everybody, those suffering and those that see it, and people feel unsafe. And, it's something that you understand, but you got to understand both sides of it,
It's a complex one, and I just really appreciate your perspective that like turning to law enforcement is an answer. I think that we can, do all sorts of things to, support law enforcement, and at the same time acknowledge that they're just not capable of responding to mental health crises, or people in those, like they're capable of responding to like criminal activity and things. That's, they've got other training, but that's fundamentally what that's for. And that's a big difference.
Yeah. And we're asking a lot of them,
right?
Right. Like, hey, there's something they get training, but it's not what we need. You need,
creates risk for everyone involved.
It does. Yeah. It's scary for those that are having a crisis, as well.
So when we look at housing, how do you feel about, the city's efforts to try to combat the housing crisis that we face? I think this is one that pretty much everyone would agree is one of the most fundamental problems that we're confronted with here, and it's hard to fix.
Yeah. And, I think the first thing that people need to know, there are requirements by the state that you're supposed to have a certain percentage of low income housing per your population size. And another component of that is what I think a lot of people, the misconception of what is low income. Low income is people that are working service jobs. Mm-hmm. They're people that we interact with all the time. It's not like these are people, they're part of our community. So understanding that, hey, these are people that just aren't making the wages they need to afford a home, so low income is a great thing and is totally necessary. We may disagree on how the state, mandates it, but that's what it is. Right now we have, the big senior housing project going into Myrtle. We've approved of a bunch of potential sites that, developing those sites take time, take money, grants and all these things. So we're ready to go. It's just a matter of the money falling into place. And I think we're super proactive and trying to get low income housing. We can't really build our own. That's not
Right.
a city's responsibility, and some people may disagree, but we're doing it the best we can. And I think in the next couple of years, you will see some new stuff going in, and it's just hard, and like these things take time. We want them to happen overnight, but it's a process. But I'm grateful that we have a council that really feels like this is important. We've got to build housing. People need homes, and we're doing as good a job as we can do right now. We're really trying, and it'll improve as time moves on.
Lots of creative alternatives, it sounds like, kind of
Yeah.
thinking outside of the box. It's something that we've spoken with several council members about, and they've all expressed very, very similar views on this, that it's a kind of legacy problem. Council member Contreras Deloach was talking about just how a lot of the housing laws and things from like the 70s and 80s have aggregated to a crisis now, and how it can take a long time to get out of that. But you're looking at all sorts of different solutions. It's less of a safe housing and more just one of like dealing with, the issue of houselessness. Talk to me a little bit about safe camping and what that looks like in our community, because that's something that you advocate for. And I know that it can be a divisive issue and has a lot of criticism to it. But what does that look like?
Well, we see it. Everybody sees it on a day-to-day basis. People living in wetlands, essentially,
Right.
living wherever they can. And so I think there's a recognition that, moving them along to where are they going to go? We have to try something different. And that's hard for people. Change is hard, on all facets of life. So we have to do this. And, what is that? What's that going to look like? What does that mean? Well, I mean, that's for us to figure out, and we're going to be discussing it in, I think, 3 weeks and trying to figure it out. But one of the things I need to point out is, this needs to be a larger community effort, because every city, the county, we're all facing with this issue of people needing a place to go. So hopefully we can do this as a larger community, figure out an appropriate location where we could offer services, try and find them housing, have people that are medical professionals could be there and available. So it helps us make the community healthier. And it also gives people a place, besides just some random location in town. So I'm hopeful we can come to a solution that's, good for everybody.
Is this something that you have, are you collaborating at all with folks like with the city of Arcata or other areas on issues like this, or is it just kind of something you're working with?
No, I know there's talks with the county, city staff are always, working, and there's talks between the supervisors and city council people. So we're working together, trying to figure out a solution. I think there's a long ways to go, but something will get done. It's just a matter of how long does it take, and how we share the financial responsibilities and all the other things that go along with that.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a regional question. And I
Yeah.
think what can be hard is if one city kind of leads the way, that they share a disproportionate burden of, trying to manage that issue.
Yeah.
So it would need to be one that everybody would need to be on the same page on, I'm sure. So pivoting just a little bit now to just kind of engaging with the community. What are your thoughts about maintaining, strident criticism? We are expected to be able to voice our opinions, our, critiques of the folks that are in government. That's necessary for democracy, but also keeping it in the realm of what we call respectful public discourse. You were talking to me a little bit before, and I've heard it on the radio. We broadcast many of these meetings. It doesn't always stay that way. And your job is to sit there and to try to navigate that space. Like, do you just have any big picture thoughts on this before we get into some of these details a little bit?
Yeah, it's been I'd say it's the hardest part of what we do as a council is people's criticism that doesn't even really relate to the agenda that we have before us. We're talking about housing, roads, and somebody comes in and wants to, berate us for issues beyond our control. Like, why is, and these are federal policies you're talking about, and it's the most trying part of being a community servant, is this lack of civility. That's what it is, right?
Yeah.
This lack of civility and this thought that us mainly volunteers, are trying to do things to the community, and we have ulterior motives or whatever. But it's a struggle. And I think I've become more hardened as a human, unfortunately.
Do you feel like it's getting worse?
It kind of peaked and it seems to be tapering off since post-elections. Like things have gotten better, but there was a period of time that it was stunning. Like, how did we become so divided? We all, like I said, when you go talk to your friends and neighbors, you all have the same interests. You care about your family, care about your community, you care about society, and yet we can't even talk to each other without shouting and name calling, and it's been borderline threats. And it's like, well, what is that going to achieve?
Right.
How does that make us better as a society, as a community? It doesn't. And I think things hopefully will get better, at the local level. It seems like it is, but I just want people to know that we're only in it to try and do what we think is best for the community, and there's no other reason. And hopefully, people will become more civil as time moves on.
How do you navigate that personally? Like, what are there tricks? I'm a public speaking instructor and debate coach, and personally, I don't think there are many tricks. I think it just takes experience and practice, learning how to cope with that emotional overload. How do you handle that aggression when it comes at you?
Lifting weights.
There you go. Okay.
4 or 5 days a week.
Yeah.
That
You got to put it somewhere.
and it's the best stress relief, is going to the gym for me and going, I'm a big fisherman, so like just communing with nature and trying to let go of hurtful things, but really about getting those, getting that anger out, and that's exercise, for me.
This could be a little bit too in the weeds, and there may not be an exciting answer, but just the other day I was listening, and it sounds like there's a joke between the word will and the word shall in terms of how things are phrased. Can you tell me what this is all about, or is this just not worth it?
That's a good question. I mean, this comes up all the time when you read a doc.
I'm just so curious about it now.
Shall is you will do it. It's something that you have to do. We're talking about like policy. We're talking in general. Yeah, I mean, it's
like something the city will do or the city shall do, and there was a moment where everyone was like, "I'm surprised this word made it into the document,"
yes,
or something like this.
Yeah, shall is you're going to do it. Will is less forceful, and in legal terms, I think it's like saying maybe. Sorry.
We'll do it if we can find a way, and if we
Yes.
can get around to it. And the word shall has much more binding commitment. And so the goal of the city would be to put the word will in
Yes.
as often as possible.
Yeah. Shall, it makes things pretty straight and narrow.
Okay. Interesting. I was really, really curious about that. I didn't really know what that was like. What kinds of things are you really looking forward to for the city of Eureka, or just going forward? Like what are you excited about that you see on the horizon?
Oh man, between Cal Poly, getting, all the growth of Cal Poly, clean energy coming to the community, and just the general, I mean, people are coming. I tell people all the time, talk to people all the time. People are coming. They want to live here. And I tell friends and family in other towns, I'm like, we always have water.
Yeah.
Drought, we have Humboldt Bay Municipal Water District. The reservoir is always full. It takes 2 rainstorms to fill it. We have water. We have a beautiful coast, and people are coming. And it's our job to try and, not, build like the Inland Empire of California. It's just subdivision of, to make it a livable community, a walkable community. That's exciting. Like, we are changing, and that's the part that makes people afraid. People are like, oh, change is difficult, but got to embrace it and understand that bringing new people and diversity is exciting. I mean, we're going to have so much opportunity here. I hope we can build the houses to provide for everybody, but it's exciting time, and that's what kind of drives me, is like, how do we build this sustainably, and how do we make it good for youth? That's another thing it's a big thing for me, is making this the best giving our youth opportunity, to have a good life, to be safe. We're coming up fast. I mean, lots of great stuff's getting built. It's going to be a totally different experience, I think, in 10 years here. It's still going to be great. It's going to be better. But we're looking for a lot of change and a lot of job growth opportunity. It's what keeps me excited about the future.
I think people get threatened by it because they view it as a kind of competition, but it's a real form of vibrancy.
It's
like a real kind of, progression and like creativity and energy and all of that's coming at once.
Yes. Yeah, no, I mean, and just like the art that we have, I mean, it's the artists that we have, and the community of that community is who else has that?
Yeah.
I mean, Humboldt has so much, and that's why a lot of us came to college and stayed. We're like, not going back to Southern California, like, this is it.
It's kind of magic. In the summer, it feels a little like cheating. I keep saying it feels like we're cheating out here.
It was like 73 degrees every day.
Yeah.
this summer. Like, how can you? It's perfect.
My family in Montana, it's 4 degrees, and it is 43 degrees here in the winter, and that's cold, but it's not 4. And
no. We're lucky.
It feels like it's cheating. What are some of your favorite little hidey holes in the 4th Ward? Do you have any little favorite spots that you like to go that people don't know about, either camping or walking or biking? I guess maybe not camping, but
no, Cooper Gulch Park is an amazing, and we're working to try and upgrade the facilities there and get grants. But it's a gem. I mean, it's got natural environment. I live close to it, and I see deer there. It's like we're in an urban setting, and we have tons of wildlife. And so just running through the park there, and playing soccer, and there's softball games and summer nights. How can you beat that? So that to me is a really special, and just the gulches in general in the ward, Cooper Gulch, 2nd Slough, 3rd Slough. Those are pretty special, and we need to protect those, because someday a lot of towns, they turn them into concrete line channels like the LA River. We're not doing that. We're keeping ours.
No, there's too many frogs in there. Well, Scott, it's been a real treat talking to you. Thanks for coming into the studio and chatting with us.
Thank you for having me.
Really appreciate the work that you're doing there. For you, the listener, this has been the Civic Union, which is a collaboration between Access Humboldt and the Department of Communication Studies at Cal Poly Humboldt. We're trying to unite the people of the county with their representative government and community helpers. We do again want to thank our guest, Scott Bauer, the Eureka City Council Member for Ward 4. Thanks also to my producer, Nate Dogg, here in the studio for all of his collaborative efforts. We will be back on Monday, March 6th, to talk with G. Mario Fernandez, Eureka City Council Member for Ward 3. If I'm not mistaken, up next is, in fact, living with your dog. Yep, proper dog nutrition and calming signals. The calming signals is the one that I need. This is the one that I need. Living with your dog is up next right here on KZZH 96.7 FM.